on this episode of Edge of the Web.
That tension between sales and marketing, right? Marketing's like, sales, you suck at closing my leads. And sales says, marketing, you don't give me enough good leads, right? Like, how do you align that and build marketing strategies that account for that, right?
Your weekly digital marketing trends with industry trend-setting guests. You're listening and watching Edge of the Web. Winners of Best Podcast from the Content Marketing Institute for 2017. Hear and see more at edgeofthewebradio.com. Now, alongside Tom Broadbeck, here's your host, Erin Sparks.
All right, hey, welcome back to Edge of the Web. We're broadcasting from Edge Media Studios, located in downtown Indianapolis, Indiana. Every week, we bring you the latest trends in digital marketing and marketing influencers from around the planet. Check out all of our recent shows at edgeofthewebradio.com. We're powered by Site Strategics, your digital marketing pioneers focused on the agile marketing methodology. And if you want to know what that is, just go over to sitestrategics.com, S-I-T-E, strategics.com, and you can check out what we do there. Basically, it's results-based, flexible marketing focused on lead acquisition and return on investment. That's what we're all about over at Site Strategics. So there's a gratuitous plug. I'm your host, Erin Sparks, founder and CEO of Site Strategics. And the reason we do what we do on this show on a regular basis is, one, to make sure that we're debunking, myths and the mystery of digital marketing, because there's a heck of a lot of stuff out there that you're going to be scratching your head regularly, and we want to make sure that we can unpack that for you. But it's also a bit self-serving because we tend to learn a little bit along the way. Right, Tom?
That's the goal. Love to learn, and so this is a great opportunity for us to learn more.
Absolutely. So right next to me is Tom Broadbeck. He's the Director of Digital Media here.
Hello.
Hello. And we'd like to introduce our guest at this time, Jeremiah Smith. No, I'm sorry. Dan Gold.
Didn't update that part of the script. I apologize.
It's all right.
Oh, Jeremiah, got another plug. Dan, the man out of Chicago, Dan Golden. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing fantastic. Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
I apologize here, Aaron. And on National Deep Dish Pizza Day, we thought we'd bring in Dan from Chicago, the birthplace of deep dish pizza, the best pizza in the world.
Sweet.
I did not realize it. That is mean to have International Deep Dish Pizza Day on Passover.
Hey, Dan, you're looking a little bit anxious there. What's happening behind you?
Anxious?
What's happening behind me? Oh, the bullhorns. This was very, very carefully aligned. I need to be at the standing desk with good posture in order for the full intimidation factor.
You do that in client meetings?
I do. I use it in pitches. It helps.
Well,
tough to say no to this, right?
Yeah, I'm saying. But how many bull by the horns references can you roll out during a conference call? You know,
I did not prepare for that here, but I will see if I can break the record. I'll get started on that right meow.
Well, Dan, we certainly want to get started with our interview, but we got some news coming up. Would you like to discuss some of the news items this turn of the wheel?
Let's do it. What's hot today?
All right. Well, let's take you through the latest digital marketing news.
I was very excited to start my reportings.
This week's trending topics.
Okay, so for all of you that actually haven't seen Edge of the Web before live, or if you're first time coming on to the show, we certainly welcome you on board. Every week we bring you the latest trending news, and we wanted to deep dive with Dan here from Search Engine Land, from our favorite author out there, Barry Schwartz. He says Google begins rolling out mobile-first indexing to more sites. So, Tom, take it away on this one. What we got going on?
Google has announced that it's begun the process of rolling out the mobile-first indexing to more sites. Rollout is for sites that follow best practices for mobile indexing, mobile-first indexing. Google said. Barry says first time Google has confirmed is moving a large number of sites to the mobile-first index. They did say in last October that a few sites have been moved over, but this announcement makes it seem like that more and more sites are going to be pushed into this mobile-first indexing. They did say, they being Google, did say it will notify webmasters and site owners via Search Console if you've been moved over to the mobile-first indexing. So be on the lookout for that. So that's kind of big news.
So how's that impact our listeners who may have websites out there that are not responsively designed?
So Google's goal is for it not to have any impact because they're saying that they're moving from mobile first, and if you don't have mobile, then they'll use the desktop.
Right.
But there are some things you should be aware of if you do have a mobile site that isn't responsive. If you have a separate mobile site from your desktop website, there could be some issues with backlinks. If your backlinks are pointing to your desktop pages, but they're not pointing to your mobile pages, that could be an issue there. So definitely be on the lookout for some of those things. Then at the bottom of the link there, Barry had a link to Search Engine Land's FAQ, everything you need to know about the Google Mobile First Index. So there's some great information there if anybody else had any more questions.
Cool. Dan, any thoughts about mobile first indexing?
I mean, the good news on this one is that we've had a long time to prepare, and this isn't. Oftentimes we get thrown some of these curveballs, and this is one of those that's been coming very slowly, and we've known what's on the path there. So
right.
Certainly be interesting to watch what happens with the sites that are falling behind, or there's still a large number of sites out there that really aren't mobile friendly.
Yep.
So as expected, this is going to be punitive to those sites that have fallen behind. To the advertisers that have been preparing for this and ready for this for years, I think it's good news. Good news for most of our clients and most of the partners that we deal with. But anytime there's a shakeup, that means there's opportunity. So
absolutely, no, absolutely. And do we have any statistics on? I mean, you can't count the number of websites anymore, but collectively, how far we are to acceptance and deployment of mobile sites. I mean, are we still fractional? Are we at 20% as opposed to 60%? Any idea? Have we come across those stats?
I have not seen that stat. No.
I don't even know how you could even accomplish.
I mean, I've seen stats where they talk about how many websites are WordPress versus non-WordPress.
Right,
so
right.
I assume there's a count somewhere, but I'm not sure if that count includes mobile sites versus non-mobile.
Be good to know, but I don't know how you could tally that. But there certainly is opportunity each and every time that you come across a site that looks like it was built in the 90s.
Surprisingly, it's surprising how many of those still exist, even with some enterprise companies that we run across.
You better believe it. Speaking of an enterprise that is changing rapidly here, from Marketing Land, from Amy Geston Hughes, Facebook. The ever so mentioned Facebook. I mean, quite popular happening right now. Now displaying related stories and share info for articles as part of the ongoing news feed. So they're kind of doing the Amazon thing here. Originally, they're actually running a test. They're actually expanding the newsfeed test it launched last year that aims to help users determine the integrity of the news items posted on that platform. Originally, the test included an I button added to the news headline link so that when clicked, displayed more information about the article and the publisher that ran it. Now, in addition to the I button displaying further information about the article, it also will display a section of related stories, which with recent headlines from the publisher, a share count that shows where the news item has been shared geographically in the U.S., and a list of users' friends who have actually shared it as well. So they're really trying to demonstrate the authenticity of the engagement there, that this news article is not just something that doesn't have context to other content that is valuable in the ecosystem there, right? So I think
it's just part of their reaction to the fake news stuff that's going on. So this is kind of to give more validity to the news articles that are actually, and there's only appears on instant articles, and so you have to have the instant articles functionality for your articles to go on the website for it to appear. So it's just provide more whatever validity to the sites that are sharing or that has that content. So
Gotcha. So, Dan, thoughts about this story as well as what's happening over at Facebook right now? Any thoughts?
I mean, so related to this story, I love it. I think it's a pretty seamless functionality. I don't think it's a silver bullet necessarily that's going to solve all of the problems that Facebook is trying to solve right now, but I actually think that's a good start, right? It's not as intrusive. It is providing some context on the sources, and I think that is probably one of the biggest issues in terms of trust is where that article came from, right? So I think that's a good. I like it. I think it's a pretty seamless integration and improves some of the transparency in terms of who's sharing it and what else is on the. When you see an article that is expressing opinions, to have the context of the publication without having to do some extensive research, because when someone's cruising the feed with their thumb, like, you got to make it easy and you got to make that information accessible. So
you do.
I think that one makes a lot of sense. Other thoughts on what's happening with Facebook? I think the big one that has all of us in the marketing world a little shaken up is just when third-party audiences are going to go away, and I believe the end of September. That one I think is going to have a bigger impact on spending on advertisers. That if there's anything that I think is maybe overstepping a little bit, that one. That's a pretty dramatic change.
Unpack that for our audience, if you would, real quick.
Yeah. So Facebook, there's kind of three, if I'm going to simplify it, three ways to target your audience on Facebook. Leveraging first-party data, so remarketing lists, your customer lists, doing lookalikes, so that's first-party.
Yep.
The other is leveraging Facebook's data, so demographic targeting based on interests, like everything else.
Yep.
And then third-party, so Experian, Datalogix, Visa. There's all sorts of these third parties that have these audiences that will match up with Facebook.
Yep.
And they're taking away the ability to do that from a
huge
privacy standpoint. It's huge. To downplay that a little bit, it doesn't change the number of people that are on Facebook, right? It just limits some of the ways that we can target people using data that people probably didn't know existed, right? I've always said, if you really want to learn about someone or even learn about yourself, don't talk to your shrink. Go to Experian and download your file, because they know everything. So, my
10 years of
go ahead. Right. So my perspective, taking a step back on all of this stuff is, I'm on the grid, and I think there's nothing wrong with targeted advertising. Certainly there's certain things you don't want to get retargeted with, and there are levels to all of this. But in general, nobody's paying to use Facebook. So if you're using something for free, then you're the product. And targeted advertising is how the world works. It's how publishers get paid. It's how the people that write those credible news articles and do research, they get paid by advertising. And from an advertiser standpoint, the last thing we want to do, or the last thing I want to do on behalf of our clients, is annoy the wrong audience with bad ads. And we look at that, right? If we're targeting an audience and it doesn't perform and our message doesn't resonate with them, that's not good for us. That's not good for advertisers. It's not good for Facebook.
No.
So, I think there certainly needs to be some regulation and reining in on data, on who's doing what with your data and giving more power back to the consumer. But, in that line, with ad blockers and all that other stuff happening, advertising is how the world works, and targeted advertising is better for consumers and better for businesses. And when it's done right, is a positive component of the whole ecosystem, right? That's how you get Facebook, and why Huffington, anywhere you get information, right? It's powered by advertising. So we need to be responsible, and the industry does need some standards. And consumers, I think with everybody getting freaked out when they learn about what Facebook's doing, like, they just haven't been paying attention. Because
you're right.
Facebook is built on targeting people with ads based on psychographics and based on what information you've shared with them.
Yeah, and as from a tangential point there, Dan, I listened to a number of different talk shows, and all this is coming out of the woodwork of people that did not know this space, and they're trying to ping not only Facebook but Google. Did you know that Google doesn't do da-da-da? And all of a sudden, all this ignorance is coming up to frothing up. But you know what? You're very happy whenever that suggested material on Amazon comes in front. They're marketing to you. I mean, you can't be upset if it's making your environment easier to transact. And we're by and large a digital consuming society, and everybody has freely given their information. I mean, there's acceptance legalese for all these platforms, and as you're bringing it in, you are letting everybody take care of that for you in order to have easy consumption of data or products, right?
Yeah,
it's just it's a maturation of the digital society. So get a grip, people. Although, hey, if you're going to be selling that stuff to create some sort of political campaigns, that's another story, right?
No, there are lines, and there are certainly lines that have been crossed, and there I believe some smart regulation to standardize the way information is shared and give some power back to the consumers over who owns your data. And I know Facebook's working hard at that. It's certainly not perfect. But I guess on the flip side of that, when I get in these heated discussions with people that don't like any targeting or any advertising, and I'm like, okay, well, if you want to read an article and get informed, will you pay 13 cents to read that? Will you spend, are you willing to pay for all of that, all of the content that you consume and all of the apps and platforms that you use? And most people say, well, they'll say it in conversation, yes, but if they had to actually pay for every article they read, my guess is they won't.
No, yep, you're absolutely right.
Final article here. Thank you for indulging us there, because we do want to unpack some of the stories that are happening right now. From Marketing Land from Greg Sterling, study captures new consumer hierarchy of needs facing brands. Tom, what's this news article all about?
So a new study by Bliss, I'd assume how it's pronounced, 52% of the respondents say they're more loyal to brands today than they were 5 years ago. And another counterintuitive data point is that women appear to be significantly less brand loyal than men, but the study also has a range of interesting and more nuanced findings than brand loyalty is up or down. So here's the hierarchy of needs. At the bottom of the pyramid is product quality. Mm-hmm. And then on top of that is price. Then availability and ease of obtaining. Mm-hmm. Then perceived value, trust. And then the top of the pyramid is brand morals, which I found that to be surprising.
Yeah. Sounds a little bit like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Sure. Honestly, there's pain of quality, but all the way you're getting safer and safer and comfier and comfier. Dan, what do you think about that?
I might take a counterpunch to this article. I'm very involved with conscious capitalism, and I believe business should be a force for good. And the brand morals, I don't know if morals is it's tough to define that term in the context of a brand. I think some of this stuff is fairly straightforward. Sure, you have to have the quality of product, but I think today's consumer and more as Gen Z and I think the younger generations really do care a lot more about the brands that they do business with. Mm-hmm. I think in terms of how that overlays with advertising, there's a lot of greenwashing, right? Plastic bottle companies saying like we're green because we cut 5% of the plastic out of our plastic water bottles. Like inherently your product is bad for the earth. So I think it's tough to define that at a broad scale, but I think people care more about the companies that they do business with, and when you look at some of the reputation issues, what's going on with United, and as just one example, and what that means for their stock prices and their customer base. I think it's more important than this article gives it credit for.
Yeah. Thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I still think I think it depends on the brand, honestly. I think in the United case, Like I know you said United, but I completely forgot why they would have a negative perception right now. I know there's the dead dog thing, I guess. Is that what you're talking about?
There was a dog. There was the guy they kicked off.
Yeah, there's a number of kerfuffles.
Yeah, I think if I'm looking to go to Denver in June, and if United was the cheapest to my kayak, I don't know, maybe it's just me, but if it's the cheapest flight of my kayak result, I mean, I'm not going to be like, they killed a dog. I'm not doing that, you know.
But you know,
I think a lot of people was like, "Oh, this is going to be price."
Well, our attention span is shorter than goldfish right now. I mean, literally, the attention span of a goldfish is 12 seconds. Human beings are 7 seconds, right? But our attention, even to a particular topical interest, it fades so quickly. So I'm worried that if brand morals is something that people are more trying to get aligned with, but they're still very temporary in focus, right? Then they're going to be going to different sites to help them understand the morals of a particular company, and then you're empowering those type of organizations, very similar to the vetting sites and the organizations that Facebook was utilizing to help check out what, you know, and be able to vet the real news. All of a sudden, you're relying on other organizations to tell you what morals these different brands have. It's a slippery slope right there. If you're putting everything into, I want to know what type of morals this company has. And I'm getting ahead of myself here, but I mean, it could very well be that everybody decides to start relying on other parties to give them guidance as opposed to kind of internally having their own compass. And I'll get off the soapbox now.
Yeah, I mean, I think the word I'm I don't know, I'm not staring at the definition of the word morals, but I think there are a lot of ways you can think about how to define what companies that are doing good in the world are doing things the right way, right? Whether it's paying their employees livable wages, or even like the supply chain and where their factories in China. Like there's B Corp, which is like an actual assessment, and we're on our path to getting certified. They make it really tough, which I actually appreciate, that there's some criteria for a brand or a business to have some sort of third-party validation that they are operating the right way. So
ethics is one thing. Ethics is one thing, but whenever you get into these subjective areas of whether or not the CEO of GoDaddy decides to go big game hunting, which was another factor there years ago, and that turned so many people off. Do they remember it now? No.
I haven't even heard of that.
No, really?
Is that how you got your horns?
These are organic.
No steer were involved in the production of those horns. Well, that's a larger topic, but I think you're right. Is that there is a bit of a counterpunch that you do need whenever you hear so much about the weight of subjective factors like that. I mean, you're absolutely right. Is that when it comes down to it, there's a lot of people that are looking for the best price, right?
Yeah.
Period. All right. Well, you know what? What you don't have to wait for is the Edge of the Web radio newsletter that comes to you on a regular basis, like clockwork, each and every week. It shows you who we've talked to, who we're going to be talking to, as well as some of these great articles and some nuggets of insider SEO tips, digital marketing tips. And all you've got to do is just sign up at the bottom line. Actually, is it at the top line or the bottom line over at Edge?
The top.
Oh, okay. Sign up at the top line. So we go over to edgeofthewebradio.com, and all you're going to get is nuggets of digital gold from our email newsletter, and your email will be used for nothing else but just communicating to you. You can also text to the number 22828, the word Edge Talk, and you can sign up or get sign up right then and there. So take your smartphones out, not while you're driving, and go ahead and do that. The number 22828, the word Edge Talk. All right, so follow all the featured trending topics over at edgeofthewebradio.com. And so let's now deep dive with this week's featured guest.
Now it's time for Edge of the Web featured interview with Dan Golden.
That's a snazzy jacket there, Dan. That was pretty cool.
Why, thank you. I've got it sitting over in the corner here, but I don't know. I get sweaty whenever I do podcasts, so
It's a very anaerobic exercise here, right?
yeah, exactly.
Well, for our listeners and our audience today, let me introduce Dan to you. Dan is the co-founder, president, and chief search artist of Be Found Online. He got his start working with the Consumer Guide and also has worked with brands like Cars.com, Toyota, Lexus, and Cabela's. Too cool on the Cabela's one. He's also a part of Google's exclusive Performance Advertising Council, a small group of industry leaders with exclusive access to upcoming Google beta products. That's got to be fun. Dan, that's the backstory, right? Tell us your real history. Where do you come from? Where do you hail from?
Where did I hail from? Well, I grew up in the Pacific Northwest. I came out to Chicago to attend Northwestern University, and 18 years later, I'm still here. So I found my way into the search marketing world as a side project to pay the bills as I was touring the country with my college band. Mm-hmm. And I stumbled into the right industry at the right time. It was back in 2003 when Google was just launching AdWords. And I've been in the search world ever since. So started this company as a side project. I had a day job running search campaigns, and I'd sit out in the parking lot making sales calls at lunch and stay up all night sending emails. So Be Found Online, we're in our 10th year. Very proud of that. We've grown. It was our 6th year in a row on the Inc. 5000 list. And a couple of years ago, we were the #1 best place to work according to AdAge. So I love what I do. I love digital marketing, and I love running a company and the fun you get to have as an agency of just diving into different brands and solving different problems, and just the amount of perspective you get just seeing so many different challenges and ways that different brands have been able to overcome those.
That is a wonderful thing, and it's very gratifying, isn't it?
It is. It's fun. I had fun in house, but I think I would get bored staring at the same website every day. So
I want to know more about your band. What was your band name? What'd you play?
I played guitar and sang. The band was called Buddha's Belly. We were kind of a jazz rock band in the jam band scene. We were nominated Best New Artist at the Chicago Music Awards back in 2004. And then we all got jobs. And,
couldn't stop. You had to stop doing the fun stuff, huh?
Yeah.
Well, go ahead.
I still get to play quite a bit these days, but it's playing ukulele in the basement for a 4-year-old. Yeah. So the audience is a little different.
Oh man, they'll tear you up, man. Those 4-year-olds.
I get heckled like you wouldn't believe, like you never did at a club.
Well, hey, if you wouldn't mind me jumping in and do a gratuitous plug real quick for our title sponsor, Site Strategics. They're very proud to be a title sponsor of Edge of the Web and wanted to share with the listeners of the show a very special offer. We develop digital marketing strategies for our clients regularly, and it goes without saying, but I'm going to say it anyway, that there's a number of conversations that revolve around return on investment. Is your digital marketing giving you what you were planning on getting? And how do you measure return? So would you like to discover your digital marketing ROI? Well, why not have a second opinion and check out for yourself how your investment is working and paying off for you. So we're actually offering a 30% off of our digital marketing report that we provide for you. If you go over to the URL, offer.sitestrategics.com/edge. You can actually drop right in there, submit your information right there. Actually, you don't want to use submit. You want to discover your ROI as the call to action there, right? Don't submit. But it's just getting a conversation going to see if this report is right for you. It consists of an SEO audit, social media review, paid marketing review, conversion analysis, competitor analysis, gap analysis, and so much more. So go over to offer.sitestrategics.com/edge today to be able to see your digital marketing ROI. So Dan, thanks for giving away for the commercial there, but we got to pay our sponsors, right?
Got to pay the rent.
Hey, you recently talked about the marriage of audience and intent. Can you kind of unpack that concept for our digital marketing audience?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm obviously drinking the Kool-Aid when it comes to search marketing, given that it's all I've ever done. And I would say, I've been guilty of making statements over the years that I don't care who it is. I just know what they're searching for, and I can target them based on intent. And that's something I said because we didn't have any of the tools to target and hone in our search messaging and targeting like display and like Facebook ads. So, to explain it, it's, search is becoming more like display. And I think with the rise of programmatic, display buying is actually becoming a little bit more like search.
Yep.
So the marriage of audience and intent is quite simply being able to target search ads and add that layer of audience. So if you're targeting, if you have a niche product and you're only, the example I like to use, you're selling t-shirts and your t-shirts have funny slogans on them that only men ages 18 to 24 find fun. So historically, it was really hard to go after volume in search as an advertiser of fart t-shirts. Because
it's a very niche market there.
It's really niche, right? So
and explosive. Sorry.
Well done.
Had
well
to.
Done. So with the audience layer on top of that, you can say, I want to target people searching for t-shirts. So that's, one of those very expensive, high volume terms that doesn't tell you a whole lot about intent. But you can choose to only show that ad if someone matches your audience criteria. And this is really there's some very broad impacts to that when you think about, I think it democratizes paid search for a lot of smaller businesses and niche businesses to go after the kinds of terms that only JCPenney could afford back in the day. So that's one powerful way, and so we can dig into some more of that in a little bit. But on a broad scale, it's adding intent data and audience. That's the two most powerful things we can use to target people. Marry those together, and it's extremely powerful.
Dan, just the concept of an intent for digital marketing, the digital marketing industry, that's been a maturation over a number of years, moving away from keywords to actually understand what that buyer's journey is, understanding where they are in their search for a product, and knowing that it's not enough just to put that widget in front of them, but actually be able to empathize about the pain points they're going through and be able to be part of that journey. Are you seeing, by and large, digital marketers understanding more about intent and intent marketing, or is it still marginal?
I think from a broad adoption rate, I think it's still relatively low.
Okay.
And some of these things, even like RLSAs, remarketing lists for search ads, which is the lowest hanging fruit there is.
It's still effective. It's very effective.
Oh yeah, no, it's extremely effective. So do I see a lot of? I think the more sophisticated advertisers are. When we typically take on new clients and have a look under the hood, we see there's most advertisers are just scratching the surface on what you can do with that audience layer on top of search. And Google will tell you, I don't think keywords are ever going to go away.
Sure.
I think the way that actually I've got this right here. This was a little hat that I made after some changes Google made. Make exact match exact again. Back to that Performance Advertising Council. I actually wore this hat sitting in the front row while the Google team that was in charge of exact match and dynamic keyword ads.
That's great.
Sure they loved it.
They did. We kerfuffled a little bit, but we got along, and I'm not against the way making it simpler and dynamic. Like I know that machines are going to be controlling a lot of this, but there's certainly cases, especially high volume keywords or certain niches, where we as marketers, we just want more control.
That's right.
Be able to have that control, even if we want to do some testing and use expanded modified broad match to go fishing for new keywords. We still want to be able to have that control.
Absolutely.
But
go ahead.
Keywords are old news, right? It's that's it's still going to be there. It's still important, right? That that is intent right there.
Mhm.
You know, if we targeting what people are looking for. But I love the different ways we can leverage audiences on top of that to either hone in on the market you want to go after, or just have ads be a lot more relevant. An example is so we have a client that has they've got a kind of an evergreen offer for new customers, where the new customers, they get their first service free, and existing customers, right, their most loyal customers that keep coming back,
Right.
they're sick of seeing that first visit free ad, right? Because they're like, well, I'm a loyal customer. Why are you constantly dangling an offer in front of me that
Kind of pisses me off. I can't get that offer anymore.
Right, exactly. So leveraging audiences in search, you can actually segment. You can have one ad that shows for new visitors, people that have never been to the site and never been to the brand. And if someone has already been to the brand, transacted, you could actually give them a loyalty offer, or promote the app, or promote a referral program. So besides the targeting side of it, I think the messaging, when you really think about it, you're different. Another example would be, a company that has both a B2C and a B2B audience.
Mm-hmm.
And you can segment, you can use remarketing lists in that case, and people that have been to the B2B portal versus the consumer-facing portal. Sometimes they're going to be searching on the same keyword, especially on your branded keywords. So there are limitations, right, in terms of understanding really the intent of the buyer just based on a keyword. So layering these audiences on top, I think it's good for consumers, it's good for brands, but from a consumer standpoint, you're going to start to see more, ads that are more personalized and more relevant. And that's where everybody wins.
What about the dynamic content on the landing page and programmed content based on the intent that you're mining as you're bringing that audience in? You're seeing a larger utilization of shifting and what do I call it? It's program content. It's dynamic, but it's also still in the space of content that you're wanting to move them deeper into the funnel with, right?
Yeah. So, personalized landing pages experiences, or, sequential messaging is another, right? If someone has submitted a lead, but they haven't made it further down, or they haven't booked a demo, right. It's a whole different, and some of this goes beyond search and includes remarketing and some of the other stuff. But that's another critical piece as well, is to just segment your audiences based on where they're, and I know the traditional advertising funnel is very, very messy, right? It looks like a bowl of spaghetti when you actually look at the user paths. But being able to identify which customers are at different stages in the buying cycle, and suggesting content and customizing messages based on that is, again, it's win-win, right? Advertisers can, especially new brands that are going after new customers. We do a lot of B2B marketing. So on the B2B side, especially if it's a high consideration purchase or a $500,000 network security installation you're trying to sell, you're not flinging T-shirts. Nobody's going to click on your ad, sign up, and buy a $500,000 contract, right? It's a very long and arduous process, and being able to customize messaging, along that buyer journey, is critical, and it's a better experience for the buyer, and brands can waste a lot less money trying to blanket a message to one entire group.
Absolutely. So, can you explain to us some of the creative applications for using audience data in paid search? Things that you've seen that are very unique and very innovative when it comes to using that model.
Yeah. So, I think the loyalty messages, I think that being able to speak to your different cohorts. So there's a few different ways that you can look at that. So remarketing lists are one way, and just segmenting off different parts of your site, based on user behavior. Custom audiences is another way, right? So there are brands that are, we have clients that have a lot of different goals. Some are very focused on loyalty and just activating their existing customer base. So one I think creative way there is just, what the audience layer on top of search allows small and mid-sized brands to do is to be a very big brand for a really small group of people without spending a whole lot of money. So, leveraging custom audiences, you can go after some of those big general terms or general industry terms, and to just a very small group of people, right?
Absolutely.
So that's the key is, some of the stuff when you bring it up in front of clients or prospects, you sort of see what's that going to cost, but it's not about spending more money. It's just about spending the money the right way and trimming the fat. So that's one thing I really like is just the ability to be really big to a small group, right? When BFO, we launched remarketing a bunch of years ago, and I got calls from friends, family, colleagues, and they're like, "You guys are blowing up. I see you everywhere."
Exactly. Yeah,
Like,
you're
yes,
huh?
I was just saying, yes, we are.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the thing is that leveraging the audience that you have as opposed to trying to fish in big ponds with a highly expensive campaign. I mean, you get your message right better with testing it out in the remarketing pool before you try to move it out and try to test it with a lot of expense, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Excellent.
So the other layer, and this is now I know these podcasts are going to stay live for a little while, and the rules of this game, especially with GDPR and some of the other things happening right now, is probably going to, like, this will be outdated by tomorrow, given how fast this all shifts.
That's why we're posting it 2 days from now.
Okay. So is the notion of like third-party audiences, and with Google, I know it's kind of gone up and down, in and out. So I can make some predictions on where I think it's going to land, but there are a lot of different audiences that Google has for targeting on the display network, right? So in-market audiences, custom affinity audiences is a great way to do some conquesting by identifying visitors that have been to these different sites. And the ability to layer those on top of search is also incredibly powerful. Leveraging a lot of the data that Google has on their user base based on activity. That's another thing we've seen work really well is just targeting, layering in-market audiences on top of search. So as of right now, and I got a table from our Google team that kind of shows which audience tools are available with, what you can target in YouTube and Gmail ads.
Oh, wow.
It's hit or miss what's available with with each of the different products.
Right.
But
you didn't bring that to share today? That's a fantastic graphic.
I could look it up on the computer, but I don't want to. I didn't want to have the cheat sheet on.
Oh no! You know what? If you never send it over to us, we'll certainly put it in the show notes. We won't tell Google. If
it's not some of the betas, there's some stuff I can't share, but I will happily share whatever. And so it's good to know. Like, I think a lot of advertisers just don't know what's available, and frankly, what's available is shifting pretty rapidly. My prediction is that at some point in the near future, Google, all of the different audience types available to Google, from custom audiences to their custom affinity audiences and in-market audiences, are going to be universally available across all their product suite. Right? So it used to be, and they killed this last year, but Gmail ads had its own set of targeting criteria. There was some stuff you could do on Google Display Network, but it wasn't available for YouTube.
Right.
They are, it's usually it's tough to tell with Google, like what they're right. Every time Google makes a statement, there's all this conjecture and 1,000 articles in the industry. And I would say from the last several like executive events I've been at, they're all in on audience and bringing the power of display targeting and all of those, all the ways that you can target display and YouTube and everything outside of search. They are committed to bringing that into search. And the flip side of that is they announced last week that you can now target YouTube ads based on previous search intent.
Ooh.
And that's another. I mean, that one's huge.
That is huge for YouTube.
Yeah, for B2B. I mean, YouTube is such a giant platform, right? If you're Coca-Cola, you could spray and pray, but most brands don't have budgets to make a dent on YouTube unless the targeting is spot on.
Right.
So the ability to take audiences based on search intent and target, it's basically search retargeting, but on YouTube, and other products within the Google Ad ecosystem. That I think is going to be game changer for B2B brands trying to figure out, like, how do I actually, other than remarketing, how do I make a dent in YouTube with the right audience?
Well, if they're standardizing it across all the delivery mediums, then it's not templatized, but you prove yourself in one particular space. It's going to be a lot easier to move, and for AdWords or for Google collectively to be able to monetize that into that other channel. But it's the challenge of the things weren't interlocking, and especially if on the YouTube side of things and the display ads, the advent of affinity groups and audience. So, I mean, that's been around, but it's evolved so much recently that what they're doing is experimenting and making sure that everything's proven out, working well, and we would love to see that crossover into search marketing. That would just be, again, to use your phrase, a game changer, just to get a common base of understanding. Now, granted, the user, the consumer, the preferred method of consumption, right, for that YouTube or that video consumer is a good deal different than the search intent on a marketing search or a search engine search. But if you can repurpose that and kind of cross-reference them, what a great boon to any organization to be able to share that data across these platforms. I think that's exceptional. That's just me. I just got really excited there.
It's exciting. I saw that article posted a week and a half ago, and I jumped out of my office here, and the team was like, "What's wrong with Dan?"
I get that a lot around here too.
Did you guys hear about the new YouTube? I mean, digital marketing nerds. That's a kind of.
Hey, speaking of a nerd insight, there, did you hear about the decommissioning of the Google URL shortener?
I did hear about that.
Yeah, they're going to decommission it in a year, right? But they're not taking any new URLs, or they're going to Firebase as opposed to staying inside of Google URL shortener. So for everybody who here's a nugget of thought here. Everybody who's going to be continually relying on their Google shorteners for that data, they're going to be shutting that down in March of 2019.
The links will still work.
The links will still work, but they won't be allowing any new.
You won't be able to create any new ones.
Right.
Correct.
Oh, that was a
Never
sidecar.
a dull moment in digital marketing.
No. So for audience intent, where do you think it's going to be going from here?
Where's it going from here? So I think I sort of made that prediction that the various audiences with Google are going to become universally acceptable. Yep. I don't know how long it's going to take. And they're always innovating and coming up with something new. And I think Google actually does a pretty good job of waiting for a beta period to make sure it's actually working before they roll stuff out. So I don't know if that statement is going to always be true at any given moment in time, but the direction I see them going is making that more accessible.
Excellent.
So I think advertisers, search marketers that are just that kind of, I guess, like I feel like media buying, typically, and this depends on the agency and the client structure, where you have search teams and display teams and the social team, and I feel like all of the way digital media is being bought is starting to converge. So search managers become media managers. Display buyers, are starting to learn more about pulling the levers and what you actually have to do to manage things, other than calling up a network and telling them you want a cheaper CPM.
Right.
I think customization. Right now, it's still a lot of work to do to build mass customization based on all these different audience segments. And there's sort of the notion of, all right, how granular do we really want to get in terms of each of the different remarketing lists and cohorts and the different ways? So, I think we're sort of laying the groundwork for personalization at scale. And personalization can mean a lot of different things, right? It can mean, the very obvious example is, remarketing ads that show me the shoes that I was looking at last week.
Right.
But some of it is just, understanding, if targeting men versus women differently, and what kind of face you put on the display ad. And just the ability to target that same audience across all the different channels in the ecosystem. And there's a number of platforms out there that are doing this already.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Google is just trying to build that true cross-platform audience targeting, within every, Google, YouTube, Google.com, the app ecosystem. So I think we're moving towards that, sort of the promise that digital marketing has always held. The technology is finally catching up with what marketers have been asking for years.
Hallelujah. However, if we're giving Skynet full control of our digital marketing dollars, I still get a little bit leery with all the automation and breaking away from the control factor. But hey, maybe Skynet can write a better ad, right?
I reference Skynet whenever there's static on a conference call. I'm like, it's happening, guys. Let's get underground. But that, what you mentioned there is really, what's gonna, my agency model is already starting to change, and roles. When you think of the amount of heavy lifting and spreadsheet work and that kind of stuff.
Yep.
It's not man versus machine. It's, how are humans going to interface with the machines, and where do humans add value when, machine learning bid algorithms can do a whole lot more, right? And certainly the data that Google has with some of their new, and we've been testing a lot of their built-in algorithms within AdWords.
Mm-hmm.
It sucked a couple years ago. But they've gotten better at leveraging all the different data points that humans just don't either have access to or don't have the capacity to crunch that many numbers in real time. So yeah, there's big questions about what role humans are going to play in this stuff, right? Is it just on the creative and analyzing? Right. It's going to be a huge shakeup in the industry. I think some jobs are going to go away.
Yep.
Just in general, there's a lot of parts of digital marketing that require a lot of heavy lifting that is really low value work that I'm glad is going to be automated at some point. Absolutely.
But we must relegate them to the menial tasks. If they take over the analyst jobs and the creative jobs, we're all for naught. Hey, yeah. You recently released a great blog, actually just earlier this week, talking about the dreaded word with clients budget.
Yes.
So why is this always a tricky conversation with clients and prospects?
It's just such a nuanced answer, right? There's sort of the perception that it's our job as the agency to get clients to spend as much money as possible. Mm-hmm. And certainly some of the financial structures of, the percent of media contracts, and we still do that in some cases. You can make that case, but I wanted to break down some of the walls and foster a more open dialogue with clients and prospects around what is the right digital media budget. Not because they're, you get asked for these ballparks, and it's like, okay, you could do a test for $5,000 a month, or you could spend $50,000 a month. It's Facebook and YouTube. The volume is there. So what I wanted to walk through is really just some of the questions that we need to understand in terms of clients' actual goals, not what channels they want to be in, but are you trying to get, is volume important to you, or are you really trying to squeeze as much profitability out of a static budget, right? Yeah. Like oftentimes clients have a budget in mind, or a budget that can't move because it was signed off by the CFO last year.
Sure.
And if that's the case, that's fine. We're probably going to recommend a different strategy in that case. We have some clients who are really looking for scale and new customers, and if we're hitting a return on ad spend threshold, they'll spend as much money as we can get under a certain target. So I want to foster more open conversations, and the typical, the typical sales call of like, well, what's your budget, says digital marketing sales guy. And the client says, well, tell me what my budget should be.
Yeah.
And so, and I respect that. And I just want to help foster those conversations, right? So also risk threshold. So, we have those clients with the fixed budget. And in that case, if we spent 20% testing new platforms and half of them didn't work, that would be catastrophic. And I'm out looking for a new client next month. And we have other clients that are just starting out, or a startup that's really trying to figure out, like, is it Facebook or is it Google or is it or Instagram? Like, what are and we have some clients with a really high risk threshold. And if we test something and it breaks and we learned and adapted, that's a win, even if we didn't make any money for the client.
That's right. So
trying to figure out like some of the root of some of those questions, I think is going to do a better service for the clients, and help agencies and in-house marketing teams just have a better idea of what the true goals are, so we can recommend strategies that fit those.
So therein lies the goals discussion. You also referenced in the article a couple of big "it depends" concepts. One of the biggest ones I wanted to unpack here near the end of our time is the overlooking of the prospect in their own sales cycle, how they process a lead coming through. And I got to tell you, it's been the bane of my existence because if you're bringing traffic, you're bringing qualified leads, you're having them, you're bringing the phone calls and the lead forms coming through, it gets into the email box of the prospect, and it dies right there because they're not responding at the timing that the consumer is looking to do. They can literally destroy their brand if they wait too long. So where do you go with that prospect or that customer or that client that hasn't had that level of introspection?
Right. It's critical, right? It's the tension with every growth team. And growth team is the hip new word to use for sales and marketing, is that tension between sales and marketing, right? Marketing's like, sales, you suck at closing my leads. And sales says, marketing, you don't give me enough good leads, right? Like, how do you align that and build marketing strategies
sock puppets
that account for that, right? So, with B2B clients that have a 9-month sales cycle, right? They're not going to wait 9 months for us to send them a report and tell them if it's working or not. So we want to understand that process, right? Where does it start? And what happens between that initial interest and when someone actually, when procurement says yes, right? So we might be marketing to get leads by pushing an ebook, but when does sales follow up with them? And what are those interim steps, right? Is it booking a demo, or is it like qualifying that lead data and saying, this gets a lead score of 7 or above? From a marketing standpoint, I want to measure that as a conversion. I don't have to call it a sale, but I want more data to tell me if this stuff is working earlier on, right? What are those leading indicators? So the more ingrained that an agency or an in-house marketing team can get with the actual sales cycle, because, a couple years back, I was presented a slide on BFO's marketing, and our marketing team said, look at all these leads we generated and the big opportunity with these big brands. And then I asked, did we close any of those? And they said, no. And I'm like, what are we celebrating? So it's the more marketing can get in tune with what happens in the sales process,
right?
And marketing can be used along the way, right? So if someone gets to that demo, that you can create an audience, and the marketing team could use retargeting ads to try and push people further down the funnel to book an on-site appointment or whatever that is.
Yep.
And that just helps give us a gauge on, the last thing I want to do is run a campaign for 2 months and come back to the client saying, well, we didn't sell anything yet, and you're fired. So I want to get in front of that as much as possible so we can actually produce campaigns that are turning into money.
The more and more any digital marketing engagement is, like you said, a combination of sales investment and marketing investment. You got to have the unification there. Otherwise, you're blind. The marketer and the marketing efforts are blind to half the equation, and vice versa. they've got to be joined at the hip, right?
Joined at the hip, otherwise the bull's going to come for you. I realized I hadn't made any bull references.
Yeah, I was counting. I was really gonna call you on it. Good. You
got it in just in time.
All right. So with that, hey, to wrap up, we ask this of all of our guests: what really bugs you about your industry right now?
What bugs me about the industry?
And don't pull any bull. Sorry.
I think the human versus machine piece right now, and there's a lot of uncertainty there, and I feel like we are. I think there's a lot in the industry that is, the term programmatic. I think there's a lot of brands and agencies that love that buzzword and are letting the machines run with it, and I feel like there's a whole ton of old school marketers who want all of that control, and I feel like I have those tendencies. So I think that to me is the scariest and also at the same time the biggest opportunity right now to figure out how to bridge that gap and find a relevant place for humans in this digital ecosystem.
We're getting sparse, man. So what in the same vein, what excites you about your industry right now?
The audience stuff, as coming from the search marketing world and just seeing how, and I think some regulations coming are gonna shake things up. But I think our ability to target better and trim the fat, cut out audiences that you don't want to target. I feel like there's a lot of money that brands can save by getting smarter about who they're targeting and how they're targeting them. And the technology is, I think, just at the point where we can do that at scale. So yeah, that's what gets me up. That's what gets me out of bed every morning.
Well, you've been in it for a while, and I mean, yeah, you've got a long history of search engine marketing. We've never had it better than we have today with the tools at our disposal, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And even our audience is more savvy. They know they're being marketed to, and they like it.
If it's relevant, that's what I'm saying. Relevant advertising is good for everybody.
I'm going to say apparently not to our first news article or second one. They don't know.
No, they don't.
Those people don't know.
They're getting marketed to. They know they are. They're just wanting to
throw the pot.
Yeah, exactly. Throw a fit. All right. Well, is there anything that we can promote for you, Dan?
Oh boy. I'm on Twitter, the Golden Dan.
That's awesome.
Writing on, always writing on blogs. I love to connect with folks. Feel free to chase me down on LinkedIn. And always on the lookout for clients, employees, partners. I love talking shop. So
yeah.
Feel free to reach out.
No, you're more than welcome, and you're certainly you know your stuff, and we want to make sure that we reference a BFO. Literally was named the number one best place to work according to AdAge in 2016, and you're number 6 in 2017. Dude, that's awesome! Awesome to be able to hear that.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I want to find out what the orange jacket. What's the story behind that?
I love the color orange. That's really all.
That's it. You had anything that you could bring to the equation here. Any random unique thought about orange, and
where do you find an orange jacket?
I just so that orange jacket. I got a cryptic text message from my uncle about 5 years ago, and he said, "Dan, what's your jacket size?" And I texted him back, and about a month later, he showed up, and he was like, I was at a mall and this jacket was on sale and I saw it and I knew you had to have one. And that's the story. That's where
awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thanks so much for your time today. And the next time around, we're going to have to ask you to wear that orange jacket because it's all that and a bag of chips, man. That's here he goes.
There we go.
Oh, okay.
This is actually a stunt double. That's just in case. Easily. So
very cool. Well, Dan, it's been a pleasure talking to you, and we wish you all the success in the world. And we're certainly going to be watching from afar. If there's anything else that we can do for you, make sure that you let us know. You've been a pleasure to speak with.
Will do. Thanks for having me on. Thanks, everybody, for listening.
More
Appreciate
than
it.
welcome. More than welcome. All right. Well, thanks for listening to Edge of the Web Radio. And special thanks to our colleagues at Site Strategics, as well as our guest, Dan Golden. Be sure to check out all our must-see videos and all the insider information at edgeofthewebradio.com. That's edgeofthewebradio.com. Be sure to rate us on iTunes or Google Play, wherever we are in your podcast listening pleasure. Hey, give us some reviews and let us know how we're doing, because that's the best way we know how to steer our ship, by just listening to you. So any final thoughts there, Tom?
No, I don't think so. It was a great interview. Leave the review on iTunes. I'm not sure about Google Play, if you can leave reviews.
No?
Maybe. I don't know.
Shame on them if they can't.
Yeah, I know.
Rate us on Stitcher then.
There we go. Do that one.
All right. We'll talk to you next week. Do not be a piece of cyber driftwood. Bye-bye.